Here's the thing with Musgrove. I think the priority heading into 2022 was Musgrove, but you had a lockout that got in the way of things. And that probably shortened your ability to get a deal done. Then you ended up in spring training. I think they did have discussions that eventually were tabled heading into the season. And Joe Musgrove has said, listen, I would still entertain those extension conversations if it was something that was compelling. I'm paraphrasing, but something along those lines. So the fact that they did not get it done in the offseason is going to be very consequential. How consequential? I don't know. It's going to cost them more money. I can promise you that. How much more money? I don't know. I said in the offseason, he was a pitcher that was capable of garnering 5 years, $100 million. I thought it was deserved. I thought he'd get as a free agent, if not more than that, heading into 2022. I will double down on that right now. And I would go further. I think that if he gets to free agency, you will pay dearly to keep him. And it will cost you other players that could be impactful for you moving forward, whether that's Mike Clevenger, Sean Manaea, or Taylor Rogers, or other potential free agents, would-be free agents out there, or your ability to retain some of the talent on your team moving forward. If there's a hometown discount, folks, it's going to be pennies. It's going to be pennies. He's not taking sizably less to stay here. I think ultimately, because of the way he's pitched over these last 2 years, he's going to get every penny that he deserves. I personally think it's the right thing. And this is what the Players Union would ask of a player in his situation. Now, here's what's happened. Not only do we all know that Joe Musgrove is worth every penny, and he could command probably, he's going to command 22 to 25 per year in the open market. I guarantee it. Someone would quote unquote overpay. And I don't even think it's overpaying for him. So if you can get it done for 5,100, or you could get to the table at 5,100, you got to get to the table because it's only getting more expensive. And when you let other teams get involved, like the Dodgers and like the Red Sox and the Yankees and the Giants, it's very easy for someone to make an offer that is going to be hard to match. It's very easy for something like that to happen. I mean, who's to say someone doesn't throw out a sixth year? Who's to say someone doesn't throw out a seventh year? Who's to say someone doesn't go up to 25 a year? I mean, who's to say that? Not everyone's in the same CBT situation as the Padres are, which is kind of up against it. Some teams are going to have money to spend. You see some of these dollars per year the pitchers have gotten. Scherzer, Bauer. I mean, these are crazy numbers. And Musgrove is pitching like one of the better pitchers right now in baseball. We'll see if that continues over the course of the year, but I wouldn't be shocked if someone offered 6,150. I mean, that might sound crazy to people. I mean, maybe that's a little high. I mean, 5,130, 5,120. I wouldn't be utterly shocked. So if you want this guy to stay in your uniform, or if you don't want it to hurt you on the other side just by keeping him, but it impacts your ability to win long-term as well and re-sign other players, you got to get this deal done. It's as simple as that. I'm sitting down at the table with him. And now, is this the best time to negotiate if you're the Padres when he started 5-0 with a 1-9 and 8 consecutive quality starts? But he was willing to negotiate with you in good faith this offseason. And you were nowhere near his asking price. Dennis Lynn at The Athletic and others at that site have reported they offered somewhere in the neighborhood of $11 million per year. That's not good enough. That's not getting someone like Joe Musgrove to the table. I mean, that's, to put it bluntly, kind of comical to consider that $11 million a year would get it done. I think, honestly, we might end up at a point where it might be comical to consider $15 million a year, $17 million a year. You got guys making $40 million a year. You don't think he's worth 20? I'm talking to the Padres. You don't think he's worth 22? We had Kyle Glazer, Baseball America, on last week. He said bottom of the starting range was probably $595, and he's now pushing. He's thinking it's a $100 million deal. We had Kevin Acee say earlier this week, can the Padres afford to keep him? But then again, can they afford not to keep him? It's one of these linchpin keystone pieces where he's got to be here. And the reason I say that now, and you could argue, well, he's this, that, he doesn't strike out a lot of. I mean, there's a zillion things you could argue if you really want to argue them. But let me put it this way. They want him in the clubhouse, and they've made it publicly known. That ups the ante now for the Padres to act and to retain and to make him happy. How do I know that? Because Manny Machado spoke publicly after this game. He was asked about it. He said, what can you say about Joe? Joe's been doing it all year, and he's been doing it for the last 2 years. He said, pay that man. He said, pay that man again. This is Manny Machado now speaking. Eric Hosmer said, whatever it takes after today's game. This is a conversation point in the clubhouse. This is a clubhouse that's rowing all in the same direction. You better keep them rowing in the same direction. Okay? This is important. I'm not saying it has to get done in the season, But if it doesn't, you're kind of asking for it and you're going to pay in the offseason. He has to stay here. I think it's in their best interest to do everything in their power to get this done during the season. But when Manny Machado speaks, Padres front office should be listening, because Manny Machado can open up his deal after a 5th year. I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to finish his career here. But we know how this works. This is a big boy world. This is professional sports. So he's got leverage. Players have a lot of leverage. Fernando Tatis Jr. has leverage. Manny Machado has leverage. Joe Musgrove has leverage. When Manny Machado speaks publicly, the front office listens. I think it's as simple as that. And when Manny Machado says get it done, and he was asked what's he worth, he said at least 20. Manny Machado said at least 20. I've been saying at least 20 all off season. Get this deal done. Get this deal done is what I would say. So those are my 2 cents. I don't know if you guys feel similarly or differently. I've got a lot more on it, to be honest with you, because I think that you got a situation where you got Mania as a free agent, you got Clevenger as a free agent, you got Rogers as a free agent. Musgrove might cost you a Mania or a Clevenger or a Rogers, but it all starts with Musgrove. That's why he's a keystone. If you don't have Musgrove, where's your starting point? I mean, Musgrove has been the ace of this staff for the last 2 years. Sean Manaea has not. Now, could he grow into that, being that pitcher? Yeah, maybe. Mike Clevenger has not. Could he grow into that pitcher? Potentially. But for me, it starts with Joe Musgrove. And by the way, if you need some more financial flexibility, we'll see about Blake Snell's 3rd year, his final year, 2023. We'll see about Yu Darvish's final year in 2023. I know The Athletic has reported that the Padres could have an interest in moving one or both of those pitchers in the offseason. I think Dennis Lin, I'm paraphrasing, but Dennis Lin has written about that. He wrote about it again today. But I say pay that man. I mean, he's too impactful. He's too important for this team to risk losing. He just is. He's too important for the city. And again, I don't think it's going to be much of a hometown discount, but I think that what are your alternatives? Not having Joe Musgrove? I mean, is that a good way to start 2023 in anyone's mind? Not for me. It really isn't. With an aging Yu Darvish, with an inconsistent Blake Snell, with a great young pitcher in Mackenzie Gore, that's great. Well, Sean Manaea, if you can keep him, Mike Clevenger, if you can keep him. But, I mean, it looks a lot different for me without Joe Musgrove. It really does. So Spencer says, on top of this, I can see a deep playoff run helping us, may create a bigger desire for him to stay. Listen, I think there's a strong desire on his part to stay, right? Being a San Diegan, being a part of a winning franchise like the Padres hopefully are in right now in 2022 and moving forward with Tatis, Machado, and others, Gore. So I don't know if the deep playoff run is going to help the Padres get Musgrove done for any less money, right? I mean, if this gets all the way to free agency, and Musgrove now is an important piece in your postseason as well, the price is only going up. There's no reason to believe there's any scenario where the price goes down outside of injury, and nobody in the world wants that. You're going to need him in 2022. You want this guy pitching to this level of effectiveness all year long. With that being said, it was only a risk. That was always the risk heading into the year. It was always a risk heading into the year that he's going to pitch like the pitcher he was a year ago, and whatever you could have gotten him for in the offseason, I think they probably could have got it done for, I mean, 5 for 85, right? 5 for 90, 4 for 70, right? 4 for 60. I think they probably could have thrown something in front of him like that and probably come to terms. Don't you? He's off that really good 2021, but hadn't consistently shown it over, 2 or 3 consecutive years. Had a good 2020 as well. I think they could have found a common ground, 16, 17, 18 a year, somewhere in there, 4 or 5 years. And he would have said, you know what? You've got Joe Musgrove locked up long-term. It's impacting our CBT. It's impacting our ability to spend right now. But we got Joe Musgrove locked up at an affordable rate. Now, they didn't do that, knowing that Hosmer, $7 million come off the books next year. Myers coming off the books next year. That's another 20. You're getting $27 million in savings, but they don't want to throw it all into Musgrove. That was the problem. If they had the 27 last offseason under the CBT, I think they put 16 of it to Musgrove. But they didn't have the 27 under the CBT. It would have put them over the CBT, and they would have been taxed on it. Now they've waited on it and said, well, we can avoid the tax. I'm speculating, obviously, but this is my assumption. Now they're saying we can save the CBT. We're going to get some relief here. The problem is the 16 you were going to spend on Musgrove is now becoming 22, right? The 15 you were going to spend on Musgrove is now becoming 23. They weren't planning on spending the 27 in savings from Myers and Hosmer on one player, obviously, and understandably makes sense, but they might find themselves in that unenviable position, is the way I look at it.